Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to another rendition of Frontline. We'll bring you new conversations from around urban America and beyond. Good evening. Good evening. I am joined this evening by my partner in the streets, partner in the struggle. Um, where you at there, my sister? I think your camera's not on. Something's not on.
You
Oh,
got it. Yeah, I'm
my
sorry.
fault. Look,
I kicked,
look.
no, I kicked myself out when I meant to hit the can, but then I hit the home button. Technical
Everyone,
difficulties.
give it up. Everybody, give it up, give it up, give it up for Donna Tepron Green, our
Hey
life
guys,
coach
hey guys.
extraordinaire, and our CFO of our organization, and just um, someone that I consider to be my own sister. Like we sister and brother from another mother. You know what I mean? So, um,
Absolutely.
but how are you feeling this evening, my sister?
I'm feeling with my hands right now. But hey Panita, how you doing, Panita? I'm having one of those days. You see my messy bun going on, so I'm having one of those days today. But I'm ready for this. I'm ready.
Well, we got a great conversation for y'all this evening. We're gonna be talking about, of course, what's going on. I'm sorry, I had to turn the music down. We're getting going to commercial there on YouTube. We're gonna be talking about this evening our youth and the criminal justice system,
Mm.
and how our organization has really kind of stumbled on the fact that there's an issue going on with the juvenile justice system. We're seeing too many folks that are being victimized while being under the watchful eyes of the public safety system. And even in some cases, while they're under the public safety system, they are going out there and perpetrating crimes. They're out there committing crimes while waiting for trial on their crimes. But first of all, good evening to everyone. Please like, share, love, do all that stuff to get the message out there. Share this broadcast on your timeline. And of course, we got to thank blackusa.news for allowing us to have this platform. Donnie gave me a shout out earlier today. He had an amazing program on the Donnie Glover show earlier today at 9 o'clock. So they were talking about the prison industrial complex and a report that just came out in 2021 that showed that blacks are being incarcerated 5 times more than any other group in America.
Mm-hmm.
So the prison,
It's intentional.
the industrial prison complex still continues as we see. Before we get into our conversation this evening, we are going to be joined by our CEO and founder, Yolanda Pulley. As always, she gets pulled a lot of times. She's out there helping folks in the community. So she's tied up right now trying to help a family navigate through their struggles. But before we move forward, we're going to start the conversation, me and you, Donna. But before we go any further, please, folks, if there's any of the sponsors down below that you see going through tonight, that you can sponsor, buy something, purchase something, utilize them for something. Stop at Terra Cafe, 101 East 25th Street. We know that brother Terrence just recently, his business was vandalized by youth in the community.
Mm-hmm. I
We went
read
out
that.
there. We had a delicious lunch, Donna. An
But
amazing
you know
lunch.
what, Jason? I honor him because instead of him getting angry, like I don't even know if myself how I would deal with that. Instead of him getting angry, he's reaching out saying, whoever they are, come talk to me. You might have a job and that's I guess that's gonna hit the spot for some of these youth. Instead of myself like being angry, possibly, God forbid, I don't know. But it's a hard pill to swallow when somebody violates you.
Yeah, man. And he does so much for the community. I've watched him do Neighbors Without Walls, where, literally 30, 40 volunteers come together. They make sandwiches. They put together these health and beauty kits that have toiletries in it, tampons for the women, because a lot of times when you're homeless, you still having your cycle, and it's kind of rough to have your cycle and not have
Instead of
access.
giving them hot pockets, because where they gonna heat it up at?
Yeah,
You
right,
have
right,
to
right,
give them
right,
things
right.
that make sense.
Well,
So,
he gathers like 30 to 40 volunteers. They go out and they feed the homeless on at least once a month. Again, they pass out health and beauty aids. They make these packs that are geared for men and women. So they have the men, of course, have the shaving stuff in it, and the women have, again, the toiletries and stuff that they need, to be able to keep their feminine hygiene up. So again, so that's really thoughtful, because again, a lot of folks just go out there and say, here's some soup, but it's 90 degrees outside. You know what I mean? Or like you said, here's a hot pocket. You don't have electricity in a microwave.
Or hot coffee when it's 90 degrees. Like, we got to do things that make sense.
Correct. So I'm glad that, again, there are good stewards of the community that are out there. And again, the food was excellent. We actually got turned on to something that we're going to actually go out there and do. I hate to say that we're going to do Greek style because the food is so big, but there's this sandwich that he has. It's a wrap, and it's a spinach wrap. With the grilled chicken inside. It has the Mediterranean rice and, the lettuce and tomatoes in there. I'm telling you, family, it comes with Chipotle sauce. We weren't really Yolanda's not really too into the spicy sauce. So we ended up getting mayonnaise on it. But I'm telling you, like, I ate her sandwich. I ate a piece of her sandwich. I was like, man, I'm getting this the next time. So, again, folks, if you can go out there and support Terra Cafe, please go out there. We're even asking during this period because it cost them about $2,000 to fix his window, and it's not something that you really want to go and report to your insurance, because you want to take a hit on your insurance. So a lot of times you take that cost and you eat that cost. So it cost about $2,000. We're asking folks, even if you can go and just put $5 in the envelope, $1 in an envelope, and give it to the cashier and say, look, give this to Terrence to help in replacement for the window. That's how community works. That's how unity in the community works. So, but again, if you can support any of the sponsors down below, again, Donnie also has several books out, Unapologetically Black, Black Wall Street, the story of Black Wall Street. I actually have me a signed autographed copy of Black Wall Street. Interesting facts that I didn't know about Black Wall Street. So again, thank you, Donnie, for just taking the time out and publishing the Black Wall Street book. If you have an opportunity, just purchase a book if you can. It's available on Barnes and Nobles, Kindle, Amazon. Make a copy or go to Everyone's Place. Support a Black business and go to Everyone's Place and purchase the book from Everyone's Place on North Avenue. So, but Donna, so much going on in reference to our youth in this city, and I'll let you kind of get things started here, because.
So the first things first is we'll throw out the disclaimer that we're going to have an uncomfortable conversation. So, just like us, be ready to have uncomfortable conversations, because, with this subject alone, you, myself, and Yolanda, we kind of bump heads with what we agree to as far as the disciplinary actions and the courts. And, it's all a setup. And my issue is the problem, because, when you throw the problem out there, you got to give some type of solution. So I honestly feel like, because a lot of kids haven't just started being bad or misbehaving. And I feel like the biggest difference now and before is the discipline that they took away from the household. You have a lot of parents that's actually afraid to discipline their children. We have people that's contacting us all the time because, like, even with the runaway children, they're delivered back home. And if the parents say, well, no, I don't want to deal with this, they could be charged with some type of whatever. So I feel if they return the discipline, because we all know there's a difference between discipline and child abuse. We know that. We've been spanked a lot. And some of these kids, if we don't beat their ASS, someone else will, including the police, the court system. They're going to beat them into their grave. So at what expense? We have a lot, so we're going to have that conversation.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because there's some
folks. Here we go.
There's some folks that say that you don't have to beat the child. There's folks that, of course, say, spare the rod, spare the child. So meaning that if you don't use the rod, there's a possibility, you're going to have issues with that child. I mean, again, so are you saying that children should be punished, and in some cases they should be punished with physical punishment, as opposed to the Dr. Spock method, get in the corner, time out, You
I
know,
feel like there's levels to discipline. There's absolute levels. So if you have a kid that's acting out, or like you're not going to beat them upside their head with something. Like it's levels to the discipline. So if you have a child that's talking back, you absolutely want to correct them with how like we have some parents that's abusive in the way they talk, and at one time, even myself, I was very abusive.
Can I interject real quick? I just want to know if y'all can hear me.
Yes,
yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
Because I'm
yes.
actually using my phone. I don't want to I was actually using my phone instead of the iPad this time. I just wanted to do a microphone check real quick.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear you.
So now you got to remind me what she know I hate that.
But we were talking about the physical discipline, and in some cases, some folks say that is the post enslavement syndrome.
It's
That
discipline and everything, though, Jason. Like it's discipline, and there's levels to the discipline that you give your child. If you have a child that's out there, there's if they learn from, because they learn conflict resolution from the home. Let's not get that twisted. So all the cussing, fussing, hollering, however they tolerate, whether they're going to grab a weapon, like our mother used to say, if you can't beat them, grab a bottle, hit them up upside the head, like whatever. So we learned that conflict resolution from home. Unfortunately, right now, we're dealing with the whole society, and I can't say whole society, but a lost society, I'll say, in Baltimore City, where as though the parents feel like the only way that the children can protect themselves is with a gun. And my issue with the kids protecting themselves with a gun and them learning that from home is the fact that, unfortunately, one day that gun, that conflict is going to come home with them. So what do we do with that? And with parents not even having the right to discipline their own children, what happens? Because unfortunately, one moment, God forbid, the gun get turned around on you.
So I definitely was a child that came from discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was beat with the extension cord. I was beat with belts of all different sizes. I even got beat with a Hot Wheels track. I don't know if y'all know those old yellow Hot Wheels tracks that you used to be able to make loops with. And you see it, you throw your car through it, and it rides the track. My moms would grab a bundle of them because I would always have something going on in my room. I'd always have them, going up the wall and making loops and stuff. My moms would literally grab a stack of those Hot Wheel tracks and tear my behind up with it. But now on my son's end of things, James, my son Smoochie, I never hit him or disciplined him, except there was an incident where he had a little girl in the house. And yes, there was some physical discipline there because I felt that I didn't want him to get in trouble for statutory rape. I felt that, that this was the highest level of disrespect because, she's a minor, he's a minor, and we're responsible for that. At that point, there was some physical activity that had to be handled because you really went above and beyond. But his majority of his whole life, nobody never put his hands on him, and he doesn't have a criminal record. He drives truck, has 2 beautiful grandbabies.
Grandbabies.
He's married. I mean, I have two beautiful grandbabies from him.
Okay.
He's married. Never been arrested. Has a high security clearance. Because he's worked security before, armed security before. So, I've never had to take him down that road. But for me, I got my butt tore up.
And you know what, Jason? For my oldest, they're 10 years older than my youngest. They got tore up. But a lot of their actions, we won't even discuss on here. They had a reason to get tore up. My youngest, it's like the most he would do is give me attitude. So if I fussed at him loud, like it's almost like I beat him bad, like in a corner, so that's why
how James was.
Levels to the discipline.
A stern talk with James was kind of the
enough.
Most of the time. Matter of fact, he even tells people, he says, man, he would talk me to death, but I remember every lesson that he taught me. But I would rather have been beaten than to have to get the long conversations that I put him through sometimes in reference to just understanding accountability. I wanted him to understand what accountability was and what he had did, because I don't want to sit there and necessarily see my moms did things like this. My moms would come in the room and tear your behind up, and she would be saying what she was doing, what you did wrong. You better not, never, and you really don't hear clearly.
And
all you know is you're fighting off the beating. You know what I mean? But with James, it was different. It was like we would talk to him and make him understand that everything had consequences. Even one time, I took the light bulb, the TV, the game system out of his room because he had did something in school. And I said, if you'd have did that in the work world, you'd have lost your job. And if you lost your job, you can't pay your rent, you can't pay the gas and electric. So to teach him a lesson, we took the door off, to show him that you're homeless. We pulled all the electric out and took everything out of the room to try to show him that there are consequences for your actions. But, for me,
Yolanda said let her in. Excuse me, Jason. Yolanda said let her in.
Oh, she left out and came back in.
Sorry, Yolanda.
Wait a minute. Can you start paying attention, please?
So you were on and you left.
No, I didn't leave anything. It kicked me off.
Okay, but because of that happened,
I didn't see that
you were grayed out again. So, forgive me, my dear sister. Forgive me. But family, we do have Yolanda Tebron. I'm sorry, Tebron Green on. And we also, I'm sorry. Did I say Yolanda? I'm sorry. We have Yolanda Pulley. I'm sorry. Former mayoral candidate for Baltimore City, as well as future mayoral candidate for Baltimore City. What's going on, my sister? What's going on, my queen?
Well, you tell me, snacking bacon, for the love of God. Okay, so there's other forms that people can actually, it doesn't always have to resort to a child being beat. When we're talking about discipline, we're talking about, like you said, you can talk a child to death because you do it all the time. We overstood. He would rather have gotten beaten than to sit up there and hear all that you had to say. Nobody said it. I was going
to say, remember that, Yolanda, when we would literally say we would rather take the beating instead of the punishment, because the punishment would be for weeks versus getting that
or months.
Right. So it's other forms of discipline. It doesn't necessarily always boil down to you putting your hands on a child. It could be time out. Like we used to get sent, when me and Donna used to get the fighting and arguing, and Granny would send us in a room together and make us sit there until we got along. That was worse than a beating.
Because we literally learned how to
get along.
Wait a minute. We learned how to manipulate, honestly, because we still didn't like each other sometimes. We came out of there. But we learned how to smile it out. Like we knew literally how to show you that we knew how to act right.
Right. So that's all we're asking you to do. Learn how to act right. Even if it's just for a little while, like she said, we learned to manipulate because we got tired of our friends being outside playing and we looking out the window because we're not allowed to go outside because we can't get along.
I did that to James one summer. I punished him for the whole summer because right near the end of the school year, he got real disrespectful with the teachers. See, my thing was, you come back to us, and you come back to your parents and you tell us if you have an issue at school that you feel is a violation of your personal space or a violation of your mental space. So in other words, if you have a teacher that's cussing at you, you don't go back and cussing at the teacher. You come back to us and then we deal with it as adults. And we're going to put that in check immediately. But he actually got engaged in words with a female teacher and called her all kinds of names, disrespectful names. So again, for us, if he'd have been in a work environment, he'd have been fired. So we actually,
Jason, listen to this.
We punished him for the whole summer, and he never disrespected a teacher ever again. He was always yes, ma'am, and no ma'am.
When these children are disrespecting everyone, they disrespect the criminal justice system. They disrespect the home monitoring system.
Their mom and daddy,
teacher,
their grandparents,
grandma. Right, they're disrespecting everybody.
But a lot of that has to do with boundaries. We're not putting the boundaries that used to be there.
Jason,
no, that's not true. That's not true. That's true.
That's because they want to be friends with their kids nowadays. Correct. They don't want to be the parents.
There's no boundaries. There's no separation.
We have parents that reach out to us all the time that cannot grab a hold of their children. They didn't start off as.
Let me ask you something. But a lot of these households have one factor. There's a single parent that's trying to struggle to do that.
It
There's a
doesn't
single
matter.
parent.
So it's okay. So
It does
so
matter.
if it was two women in a relationship or married in the house and they disrespected them, then what? If it's two men in the household and they've been disrespectful, then what? These children are not.
But these are not the examples. A lot of these examples are single parent households. Correct?
Cut me off.
I'm just trying to get you to understand. These are single parent households, correct?
No, all of them are not single family parent households, Jason. You don't take the calls that I get. And
I know I don't take
that is
calls.
real racist and biased that you think
That's
that every
not.
call that comes through is a single family household.
I'm saying that the majority of the calls that you've been dealing with, let's take the 12-year-old in Westport. Was that not a single parent that was struggling with her child?
I have no clue
that really
where the father was. I never asked. No,
and that's
wait
not
a minute.
the
First
point,
of all,
because at the end of the day, she could get mentors.
Jason.
You got Boys and Girls Club. You know, you got
Jason,
different.
please.
We got Big Brothers organizations.
Jason, stop it. People don't gravitate
You got
to
We
that
Are
old
Us
stuff anymore. Jason,
You got
stop
We
it.
Are Us.
Jason,
You got
I
We
haven't
Are
seen
Us.
them take a child in yet, so stop it.
Well, they claim they have a mentorship
I don't
program.
care
I'm
what
not
they
doubting.
claim.
Right.
I don't care
right.
what they claim. What I'm saying is we have a mother and we have mothers that come to us and say, and matter of fact, even if the father is not in the household, he's actively engaged with his children. When they call, he's there. He do not have to be in the household for them to have two parents. Let's stop
And you
that
say
narrative
not
there.
necessarily two parents in the household. I'm saying that you have one parent that's struggling to rear a child, especially men in the city. We know that that's the common dynamic.
12-year-old,
it's higher than 60-70% in our community. It's not being
Jason,
racist.
With the 12-year-old,
it's just reality.
He
it's
had
reality.
an active mother and an active father, and neither one of them. Every time he got sent over to one house, he always ran away. That's when she went to the courts and say, if you put him on home monitor, he's gonna run off. They sent him to his grandmother's house. He ran away. What y'all failing to realize, it has nothing to do with the family dynamics. It has everything to do with children.
Doesn't it start at home? Everyone says.
Everyone says
everyone else says. Jason, they're not living with terror either.
But hold on, let me tell y'all, like, y'all putting all situations together. That's the reason why it sounds like y'all don't agree. It's like sometimes it's only one parent in the house. Sometimes it's more than one parent in the house. Sometimes you have active parents that's not living in the house. Sometimes it's a sometimes situation. However, when you have a government that have them set up the way they do, and they're set up to fail. You know, if we're not learning correctly in school, and then we have parents that's working 2 and 3 jobs, they're not able to parent their children. You know, so unfortunately, they fall victim to the ones that they think is going to have their back, their friends, their homie, no matter how old they are. So you literally got to parent your children. So you got to stop and think that, you know, like, I can't afford not to work. If you can't afford not to work, then we must get to a point where we say, you know what, I can't afford to have no more kids.
Correct. I'm telling you that there's similar dynamics in our community. You have latchkey kids. You have single parent households. You have households that in some cases have no boundaries. You're putting your children in adult situations. You're drinking in front of them. You're smoking in front of them. You're cussing. You have friends hanging out that you know are artistic, that aren't good around, supposed to be around children like that. And the children are picking up a lot of grown habits. I see children that are acting like they're 19 and 20 years old sometimes. And I'm saying, well, what's going on here with this child? Why are they acting like this? But it's because we are putting them in adult situations.
Jason, I would bet that majority of the ones that's older than us said the same thing about us. The only difference that we're not doing is majority of us picking up guns and weapons for fights.
Right.
You know, because they got this embarrassing thing with the internet and not wanting to be embarrassed, you know, like that's the difference. So back then we were fighting, back then we were stealing cars, you know, back then we didn't use a lot of weapons for some of the things we did because we felt like our hands can protect us. Nowadays they feel like ain't nobody fighting, so they automatically assume I'm gonna have to shoot them.
Right. See, so where does that give you the right? No, where does that give you the right to go out here and pick up a gun and take somebody's life?
I didn't say that it gives you the right. Right.
Hold on, without consequence.
Right. We're not talking about. I'm talking about. And there's many situations that I can think of. Again, where there's no boundaries. The children have been out of control because you didn't put boundaries there. You're putting them in adult situations. You're handing them a tablet instead of engaging with them and working with them and nurturing them and rearing them. You're basically allowing them to raise on their own. I have to call it out as it is. I got family members like that. I got family. You go in the house, the first thing you smell is weed all throughout the house. All throughout the house. And you have little children that are impressionable.
That doesn't make them a bad parent. Irresponsible.
I didn't say it makes them not a bad parent, but we were always told at our age, go in the room. My mom smoked weed. My mom's drank. My mom smoked weed, but we had to go in the room. And we would listen sometimes in the door to hear what grown folks were doing, and we get caught. But for the most part, in our generation, it was get out of grown folks' face.
Sometimes, Jason, no, but let's keep it funky now, because sometimes we had a lot of parents that was addicted to drugs and alcohol, whereas though they were more of our friends than they were our parents. So that's where it all started at. So our grandparents start being the actual parent, and the parents start being the friend, because they had so many regrets behind what they may have done, and then a lot of us had problems forgiving. We got to take it. It's so many layers to this. So it's like this subject can go on and on and on.
Then you got this one other factor: unwanted children. Donnie said this today.
Oh yeah,
said we got to stop having unwanted children, and we see the dynamic sometimes when again, because we do have this sexual-driven community. It's in our music, it's in our clothing, it's in our entertainment. Everything is sexualized. And then we sit there and we make a mistake because everything is sexualized, and we have this child that technically we didn't want in the first place. And then we hate the baby daddy, and we treat the child. You know how many times Patrick has said he's heard that working at Liberty Tech and Rec? You just like your father. I can't stand him. I can't stand you. You just like your father. Come on. And dragging.
But that's not every household. That's not.
But I'm telling you that there are these. Again,
let's stop generalizing. Just say some parents.
No, it's not. You're not understanding. All of these equal up to the whole pie. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Yes, there's a great percentage of folks that are out there that are rearing their children and doing the responsible thing. But when you add in teenage pregnancy, when you add in unwanted pregnancies, when you add in parents that are trying to be friends, when you add in parents that are putting children in grown, and you add up all these things that are more common
out of the house. When you take discipline out
of the house, right? There's
and
again,
you pass legislation that's going to make them not understand what accountability is, because all of this is a setup.
Right.
Yeah, but Donna, let's talk about who Jason always using as an example all the time. Mr. Ted Sutton. He had two parents that grew up in the church.
Correct.
He still went out there in the streets and did
That's because
what he
the streets influenced him. The streets influenced him.
It doesn't matter,
at some point,
Jason,
at some point, his parents did like this. His parents said, "You know what? We ain't gonna keep doing this. We ain't gonna keep saving you.
And you're gonna stop over talking me. That's what you're gonna stop doing."
You're not hearing. Ted's situation is just like every other. I didn't come really from a bad home. I didn't really come from. My mom's worked, went to school, fought hard to try to keep her household.
So it has nothing to do with at home. It's what I'm sitting here telling you. You can't say it started at home.
But you can't say it. But hold on, you can't say it has nothing to do.
We talk about certain circumstances. I'm not going to generalize everybody.
Yeah,
I'm not generalizing. I'm saying that's a large portion of the pie. That's all I'm saying. That's a lot. There are dynamics in our community that creates these cycles. And unfortunately,
sometimes children do because they want to do. That's what you're failing to realize. They want to go out here and be the next biggest, baddest thing, biggest.
But you know what, Yolanda? Unfortunately, let me just say this. Unfortunately, a lot of us made it bad for them. A lot of ones in advance of us made it bad for us, because what we saw in the magazines, what we saw on the TV, what we saw in what was represented in front of us, the only ones in our hoods that had the money was the ones that was doing illegal activities. If you wasn't sexy enough, pretty enough, or smart enough, you wasn't making that out of the hood. So you typically did some of the things that was normal to us. Like the way, like we're not gonna let the white man hold us back, and we all know how to get this money. So and a lot of times what our parents water, and what we water will grow. So instead of our parents and what we missed the mark on, instead of us watering our kids' brain and their whatever
Nurturing.
whatever it was. So like if they can draw a beautiful circle, instead of us talking about well, why are you drawing a circle when you can go out there and play basketball and football, knowing the chances of what we were doing to them was going to set them up.
Correct.
Because it's like instead of watering what's there on them, so whatever the skill is, so if it's a boy that can dance, instead of us saying, oh, that's what girls do, let's try to figure out what we could do to try to make them money from things that they love instead of things that we want them to do to push them. Because for all of my sons, I saw something else for them. I saw one being a football player, one being a basketball player, and one being a boxer. Oh my God, was I wrong?
And that's typical in our community. That's not stereotyping. That's not stereotyping. That's typical. Donnie's even said it.
But we got to stop doing that. Like, instead of me telling all of my sons, y'all smart, whatever you want to do, you can do, be the best of it.
Right.
It's like I literally pushed my son into college and into debt for him trying to do something for me.
Right. With like in the Nigerian community, they say, my son's going to be a doctor. My son's going to be a lawyer. My son, right? You know what I mean? Like
they don't respect a lot of other things.
No, the basketball. No, you're not gonna be.
Like, no, you're not gonna be no athlete. They don't want no athlete. That's not respectable to them.
Correct. And there's other societies. I know the Jamaican community thinks the same way. Even in Hispanic, I keep telling folks in the Puerto Rican community, like you don't understand. Like me and my cousins, we are all shunned upon because all of us really kind of, hit the streets running. Even my female cousin, I won't throw her name out there. I love you, my sis. But she was out there hustling, and everybody else in the family had broke cycles and was like the first on that line of the family to be college educated, to have a PhD. We have PhDs and all kinds of stuff in our Puerto Rican side of our family. But for they look at us like, we are the black sheep because we didn't excel or move at that same level as everybody, or achieve at the same level as what the family was trying to achieve at.
Okay, but listen to this. We in the black community see our children as two things, either success or failure, by pushing what we want on them, because we're still trying to figure out how to get out the ghetto. So we want our children to be star basketball players and football players to get us out the ghetto.
Instead of us getting off our real ends, because a lot of us are, we're capable of going out there working, but we just don't want to. We get too comfortable and too settled in the system and feel like, oh, if I do this, they're going to take that. And unfortunately, that is the case now. So if you are out there making a little bit of more money, you're not going to get any food stamps and medical assistance. So it really makes you think about it nowadays. Like, if I lose my medical assistance and my food stamps, like, I'd rather quit a job.
But then the ones that do lose everything and go out there and have to work 2-3 jobs, they're leaving their children at home. They're latchkey kids.
And they're praying they don't get sick, though. Listen, they're praying that they don't get sick. They're praying that their kids don't get sick, because now you're living with no medical.
Correct.
And the one thing that we definitely living without, the one thing we don't want to talk about, one thing that we don't want to think about, and the one thing we don't want to pay for is life insurance.
And the bad part about it after COVID, like,
on here to talk about that, like,
so we push our children to be the biggest and the baddest, and we teach them shut up, get up, it don't hurt. If somebody hits you, hit them back, and you better knock the
no pain, no gain
out of them. We're teaching them behaviors that they do not. We're not teaching them conflict resolution. We're teaching them violence.
But Yolanda, what I say, we had angry parents. And angry parents have what? Angrier kids. A lot of our parents, we marinated in their anger, in the womb. Like, that's something when you're marinating. And just like Jason said, it's like unwanted kids. Like, when you got somebody that's dealing with situations and feel like they have to have a baby, and then they go with the dropping the baby off because they don't want to deal with the baby. So God forbid what's happening to the baby, because they're not paying that baby no mind.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with a young lady on yesterday. Well,
Did we lose Yolanda?
Did she freeze?
Yeah, she froze up.
Oh, there she go.
All right, start from the top. You broke up. We
I said
lost
I
you for a second.
received a phone call from a woman yesterday about her son, who's now she considered a problem because he's now getting locked up and this, that, and the third. But to make a long story short, it was okay for you, and I had to give it to in layman's terms. It was okay for you to take his money selling drugs.
Mm.
It was
That's
okay
the
for
first
him.
step.
Well, he couldn't be laying up in my house and not paying bills. I would rather for my son to lay in the house and not pay bills than go out here and break law and get my house raided, because that's where the whole conversation boiled down to. She don't know what to do because she's going to get put out because her son, they raided her house. They raided her house and got guns and drugs out of the projects. And now all of a sudden it's a problem. No, and what I told her was it was okay for him to do this as long as he wasn't caught, to help you pay bills.
Oh. Well,
and as long as she didn't stop it, that's her consequences, because you're teaching your, God forbid, there's other children, because you're teaching your other children, oh, well, if he sold drugs or if he making money from selling drugs, I'm going to try to do the same thing because it makes mommy happy.
Yeah, we literally have women that's in the projects that's losing their boys and their females to violence out here in the streets because they chose to go out here and do all the wrong stuff. Yeah. And then it becomes a problem. Then it becomes a problem, and now you're sitting here sick and you don't have any children when you should have nipped it in the bud. Then I do not condone that type of behavior, and guess what? I cannot help her. I'm not fighting for eviction. That one, you knew what was going to happen. And two, I'm not fighting for an eviction.
And that's the rights and the responsibilities of the tenants and also the landlords. So we don't condone bad behavior. Right. We can't save the bad behavior.
Right. Well, let's take this into fifth gear. Let's take this into overdrive here. Okay. Because Yolanda's bringing up a great point, and it kind of ties into what we really wanted to talk about this evening. And that's the juvenile justice system and the whole public safety system and this whole monitoring system. Yolanda brings up a great point. Some of these households are kind of perpetuating what's happening. You know that your son was on the box. You know your son just got caught for a handgun charge or drug charge. But then he's back out in the street on the box selling drugs, or in this particular case, in this situation, we know that Mr. Jackson, who was involved, that was just arrested recently and for the 30 folks that were shot, 2 killed in the mass shooting in Brooklyn homes. Now, it turns out that he was arrested in February of 2023. And at that time, he was locked up. He was not out. He did not make bail. All right.
Wait a minute, tell me why he was locked up, Jason.
He was locked up because he was found in Mervo. The police had tried to engage him in reference to, they believed he had a gun on him, and he refused to be searched. The police had to fight him for his bag. 4 officers, we heard. All right. They found an extended clip, 9mm weapon, illegal, of course, probably no registration, stolen, loaded. In full, fighting 4 police officers, which at the minimum, like I told Yolanda, is a 2nd-degree felony assault at the minimum. All right. Why was this child then remanded to juvenile court? So he was locked up in February. In March, he actually was released because they filed a habeas corpus writ against him because he was still locked up, getting it pushed down into the juvenile court. He was then released because he didn't have a trial date yet in juvenile court. And part of his release was that he was to be put on a box and stay his butt at home over in the Homewood section of Eastside Baltimore. So how does a child who was supposed to be on the box on the day that this happened just no more than 4 weeks ago, the mass shooting in Brooklyn, how does he end up in Brooklyn on the box with another weapon and causes a mass shooting, or we'll say alleged is
because
involved?
People don't vote.
And how do you say this is in reference to voting?
Because people don't vote. People don't vote because, like, if people voted, we would have the right people representing us, passing the right laws instead of the setup that we're going through.
So you don't think that the system? So you're saying that this system or this policy shouldn't have been necessary in place? Because again, If you
I'm
have, and I told
saying
Yolanda,
that
the only reason why he may have been out on the box was because either the juvenile facility was filled up, something was tied up to where he couldn't go to a juvenile facility, and they
mhm.
thought that sending him home under the box, which is a
Either
system.
he'll die or he'll commit another crime to make us keep him next time.
No,
So it's
But
that
this is
one.
is that the purpose?
no, this is
That's the
what
purpose.
happened.
It's rotating them because it's collateral damage. You know it is. It's collateral damage because I feel like each child that commit any type of anything, they need to be looked at individually. It shouldn't be, oh, they're under a certain age. They shouldn't, if the crime
He was
applies,
17. He was
huh?
17. He was 17. He could have been charged as an adult.
He could have been and he should have been.
Right. But he ended up in juvenile court. Now, again, there's
Now
a
facing
system.
more serious
Right.
crimes.
Right. But there's a system that's supposed, no, when he was 17, he was on the box at home. The system is supposed to say, you take your butt home with your child, you watch over your child, and here is your court date coming up on this date. And while you're waiting on trial, you're supposed to be supervising your child. He's supposed to be in school or some sort of program. There are requirements when you send a child home under home monitoring.
But no one's checking it though, Jason. We already know no one's checking it. And when the parents call in and tell them, even report them that they're not there, and they already know, what the situation. When the parents call them and let them know, well, my child done left. I know, I'm concerned about my child. They're not doing a thing. It's like it's collateral damage.
And we got that phone call.
And
too.
that's what I'm saying. Chances
Right.
are, if you got a child out here that's young, that's been locked up already for a gun, and they slid through the system where it's though, oh, they're juvenile, let them go home. How many more times are you going to give them until one, they're dead, or they do a more serious crime where it's though they had no choice but to give them time?
Right. So the information that I received was, the young lady, when she found out her son wasn't in the house through her when another 17-year-old that was killed earlier this year, she noticed she got the notification on her doorbell, her Ring doorbell when it went off. She called the home monitor. She called the home monitoring, and she called the home monitoring, and she told them that her son was not in the house and they needed to go locate him. And when they located him, they called her 2.5 hours later and say, hey, on our way around the corner to get him, and he was already deceased.
Yolanda, you remember back in the day when the people was on, and I know you remember that too, Jason, when people was on the box, as soon as they left off of something, as soon as like they made that phone call, and if it wasn't something going on with the phone or something like that, they was coming out. What happened to that?
But see, there was a system that was different than it is now. Like, for instance,
it's overwhelmed. The system is overwhelmed.
Not only is overwhelmed, so originally, the original GPS program, the state bought the equipment and you paid for the equipment, but there was also a state monitoring. So there were officers in the Department of Public Safety and the probation that came out. And sometimes they would come out just to do a spot check to see, because again, at that time, the judge tell you, you're not supposed to be associated with any known felons. You're not supposed to be on no drugs, alcohol. You're not supposed to be outside the home. So sometimes
you're not even supposed to be in the area of the crime a lot of times.
Right. And we've watched it. I told Yolanda a story. I said, I remember one time one person had issues with their box where they noticed the box kept going off and kept saying that they were disconnected. And they told everybody, they said, man, I gotta call these people because, if this thing keeps going off and they come and snatch me up, man, I ain't trying to get, we were scared of it. We were scared of any little quirks with it and reported it and wanted to comply with it because we knew that meant that we would be violated if we broke any of the rules in reference to GPS. Now it seems like well, from what we understand, there's a vendor involved in the whole program. So you pay for the box, they monitor it, they do the GPS location, and then they will then dispatch that to the police if you are violated. So there's not an actual patrol anymore that goes around checking these boxes.
What
so
happened
it's a breakdown in this system.
What happened to it? You got a system that they're paying even more money for.
Correct.
Like people are literally going broke to be on home monitoring. And I like to throw an idea out there because you know that gunshot, what's the name, technology? Won't they put that on the box? Because a lot of them are out there doing crime. So it's like if it's something that goes off and that box is on them,
Right.
it
And
should
it ties you into the GPS. But again,
Yeah.
it seems to be so there's like 2 or 3 vendors that are in charge of this GPS that you subscribe to. So they actually put the responsibility on the parent to get in contact with the particular vendor to set up the arrangements. And if you go to the vendor's website, they say, "Oh, this is supposed to save the state $25,000 in reference to incarceration while people are waiting for pre-trial or waiting for trial related service."
If they're not locked up in there, the state is not, taxpayers not paying for it. We get that. But I'm going to pay more money to be home, and you're not really monitoring me, but I'm paying even more money for you to tell me my mama should monitor me.
And that's basically what they're saying. And then Yolanda found out that they don't run 24 hours. So the monitoring technically only happens 9 to 5. Now, again, remember I told you about these boundaries for children. If a child knows that's on a home monitor that after 5 o'clock, I can leave the house and ain't nobody going to really say anything.
So when are we going to challenge that, though? Because that's going to come with changes.
When someone called them, they have a 24-hour hotline. I mean, an in-call thing, I guess,
Right.
when people transfer it to their phones or whatever. So if she called them at 9 o'clock and told them my son is not in the house, and then she found out 2 hours later that her son was deceased, and when they called her, they was like, "Well, we just located him. He's around the corner from us." And her only response was, "You're too late. He's already deceased."
I'm trying to find out, how do you have a system, again, that's charged to hold these young people accountable for a crime they may have committed. But then in some cases, what we're finding, and we don't have just one case, family. I'm telling you that People Empowered by the Struggle has not dealt with one case. We have about more than a half a dozen cases where juveniles were either on the box, committed a crime, or were on the box and ended up dead.
And that's the people that know to contact us or figured out a way to contact us. So I wonder if we did a study as to how many children or juveniles actually was either shot or killed while on the box.
Or went out there and perpetrated another crime while still waiting to be held accountable.
Where is that information at? Can we pull that somewhere?
Well, because it's a juvenile record, it's protected. Correct. So it's a protected, sealed document, and again,
I mean numbers. No one is calculating, even without the names. I'm saying the numbers of juvenile that recommit crimes and or that do something, where because somebody need to be calculating the numbers, because if not, they're not going to really see the significance. It's one thing about talking about it, it's another thing with seeing it.
Yeah, I know there's a broken system here, and I know that Yolanda recently has actually solicited the mayor's office to do an investigation, and I know that currently the mayor's office is inquiring about how many children are on the box, how many children have been harmed while under the box, and how many children have gone back out there to commit crimes to try to get a take on exactly what's going on. I know that Yolanda and us have expressed on putting together a petition and petitioning Governor Moore to take a closer look as to what's going on with this public safety system and the GPS monitoring system and these vendors that are supposed to be in charge of the GPS system.
I like to give praise where praise is due. I got to give it to Mayor Brandon Scott, because he was already ahead of the situation when he went down into Annapolis, and he went down there and he asked for, the data on these individuals who's on home monitor that's not being properly monitored. And he said, "Hey, give us the data so we can start tracking them." And they never gave it to him.
So how do you get the data?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. If the mayor couldn't get it, how do we get it?
Well, the governor can. Again, the governor. So we're talking about a state agency. Yes, the city has an interest in it because there are children that are supposed to be monitored by the program. but this is a state agency. That's what Marilyn Mosby was trying to tell us at first, that a lot of these things that folks are pointing the finger at the state's attorney's office about is a state agency. And we have a new director for Department of Public Safety appointed by Governor Moore. We need to hold their feet to the fire and ask them what's going on with this agency that's charged to, one, protect the public, and two, protect these young minors that have violated the law, that are supposed to be facing and answering to their crimes.
Did you see that interview with I think it was Giovanni, and it was when he was saying how, like, and Yolanda even said that how like even with City Hall, how it used to be a certain amount of people, now that like the budget then got so big and so many people that nobody know who's responsible for what to do what. And then they send you in circles, and then you end up not getting anything taken care of. So I feel like it's intentional.
I think it
I
is
really
very
do, because you're spreading the government open. It's too much government. It's too many departments where it's though you got to call one to get
too
to another.
Many unnecessary departments.
But it's intentional, because why would you do that instead of having, I would want to make it smaller so they know, okay, if I contact this, then I can be routed to the correct place. Like they making all of these, who's fixing anything when we had them contacting us and they get paid for it. They getting taxpayer money and will contact us to take care of what they're supposed to be doing.
Let's throw it into the last gear here. Should the governor call a special session in reference to our youth? He's already made an announcement that he's not going to call a special session. Yolanda?
Well, I don't feel like we don't see if we know what the problem is, and we already have all these laws in place. Those laws need to be enacted. We don't need to keep creating more laws that's only going to turn out to be something else fail. We need to act on the ones.
Review the ones that they have in place.
You got to have a conversation to review them, and a special session, because again, this is a state of emergency.
No, but
I'm telling you that the youth violence is up in this community, in our community. I can't talk about any other community.
Yeah, but they're talking about a special session to create more laws for juveniles. We don't need
to review the law.
Look at what's going on, Yolanda. You don't have to throw out another law. Like the ones that's going, the ones that they had right now is not working. It's not.
And you have to ask the questions in reference to public safety. But you have to ask the question about public safety. Again, if you're charged with a task, and that is the mechanism that children are supposed to be protected under, why are children being murdered while under the box? Why are children still running out, carjacking,
I'm going to give you an example, Jason. I'm going to give you an example. It's not why. So just the other day, Yolanda was telling me about something that just happened to her with some juveniles that made a comment that they were going to take her truck from her. Like, this is what we're dealing with. So suppose Yolanda was one of those reckless people that heard that and just shot him.
Right.
Because you got a lot of people out here now, they're not playing with them.
Or like the gentleman that tried it. And again, I don't encourage vigilante justice, because again, you could end up on the wrong side, of what you think is justice. And in a situation, you get out of a vehicle with a baseball bat and you end up, dead in the process. Yolanda could have took action. But these young people have backpacks on, and we don't know what's in them backpacks. Not nowadays.
My issue was, Jason, is not going to get a gun, not pulling out a bat. If I had made the bad decision to use my vehicle as a weapon,
you would have been on the wrong side of vigilante justice, because you would have been arrested for harming them children.
Did y'all hear about the young man that his son was hit by the car and the guy got out to help him? I mean, it wasn't intentional, but he killed the guy because he hit his son. So we're dealing with, that's what I mean, the fragile sticks. We deal with so much that we're not willing to take the loss of one more thing. We're not willing to take the loss of you taking my car, you taking, God forbid, my life or my kids' life, because then it creates a domino effect.
Right. I agree. I agree. Go ahead.
Jason just agrees that, we have to pull these children under our wing and give them one big hug and release them to the street.
I didn't say that. That's not what I said. You're taking my words out of. So, and she's trying to start trouble, family. I'm telling you, she's trying to start. When we get off air, it's gonna be some trouble. Okay, but no, honestly, my thing is, I'm saying that we need to get to them before they've reached the box. We need to get to them before they're out there trying to carjack to them. And the way that we get to them in some ways is we have to get out and mobilize in the communities. We got to have social workers in our community. We have to have psychiatrists in our communities. We have to have
what is it
mental
going to
health
look like,
specialists.
Jason, when they pull out them guns on social workers? What is that going to look like?
Right.
Because remember, what they grew up thinking the social worker is somebody that's going to come in and take them from the home. So it's literally like we got to teach.
I'm not talking. There's mechanisms in place, like for instance, in elementary school, when you know children are acting up in elementary school, and you have a guidance counselor that's watching over the school and identify, refer them. Allow some of these organizations
they because they know what they're dealing with in the parents. You got a lot of parents that's out here that's broken and dealing with a lot of mental illness that's afraid to even face
work on the parent too. Work on the parent too.
Yeah, it's a whole lot, but it's layered.
You gotta hope, Jason, you know goodness well that some parents are unworkable. That's why their children are uncoachable. Because what did we go through last year at Forest Park? The woman sat up there and said, "He's your problem for 6.5 hours. What are you calling me for? I'm not coming up there." When a little boy thought it was a good idea to pull a gun out on Jordan.
And see, the problem is, suppose somebody had retaliated against this kid, and then mama would have been looking for a son that didn't return home. But then somebody else.
Guess what, Donna? Unfortunately, one of them did lose their life.
Yolanda, that's what I said. The one up top. Remember, I said that.
We got to wrap this, family. Again, as you can see, we're only getting started in this conversation. And I think we got to definitely circle back and have another conversation about this, because at the end of the day, our children are dying. And we're not talking about white babies. We're not talking about Hispanic babies. We're not talking about Asian babies. We're talking about black babies.
I knew he was going to try to slide that in.
You know I was, to end this off. So, because at the end of the day, it's about our community. It's about our children. And we have to find a way to get a hold of them.
But we also have these young ones out here, these black ones that you're talking about, that's also carrying guns and taking these children's lives.
I get it. I get it. Love y'all, family. Y'all be blessed. Go out there and do something for someone other than yourselves. Donna, really quick.
That's the close when I say see you next week. I love you guys. And let's continue having these uncomfortable conversations.
And Miss Pulley, where we didn't get to see you, say good night.
Good night, family. And we're just gonna love on Jason as much as he want to go out here and
you in trouble
with guns. And he want to protect the ones with the guns and not protect the victims.
Love on me if you want to. I'm gonna act out. I'm gonna show you acting out. You have to put me on a box. You have to put me on a box. Love y'all, family.
Good night, y'all.